Are you sitting comfortably? So, the only ones return yet again.
Years passed since last time we were here, and I finally relented to the invitation, and because it was a year and a half ago that they asked us to do it, and a year and a half seems a long time, so I thought if I'm still here then I should do it. There's no great plan, just a spur of the moment decision. And we had 2 warm-up gigs, Thursday and Friday, at Hebden Bridge Trades, and we were pretty good.
Yeah, I saw the people that like those gigs.
Yeah.
I saw clips on YouTube and it sounded fantastic. It sounded really good.
It's a nice room. Sorry.
It's a nice room to play. Lovely sound.
It's a great venue, isn't it? Yeah.
It's about my favourite size to play. 400 up to 1,000.
So John, with the only ones getting back together, what's your take on it? You know, is it the same thing? Somebody just offered you a gig, you thought, great, let's do it again, or is it something you always hope will happen again?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always happened when we thought, let's do one. So we put it in, it sold out in about 40 minutes sometimes. So I was getting a ton of emails from people saying, oh, we couldn't get tickets, can you guest list us? So we put a second night in, that sold too, so we had 2 warm-ups.
I mean, was it something you were hoping would happen again, to do the only ones?
At this stage, it comes around when it comes around, you know?
I don't think there's that much thought put into it. You know, like when you get to our age, you live a day at a time, and so when you get asked to do something in a year's time, you think, if I'm still here in a year, then yeah, why not? You know, got to live life while you can.
And there's always the question of who's alive, of course.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of us has died since the last time we were here. Very important member, Mike Kelly. It feels odd doing stuff without all the original members. Because I feel a bit ambivalent about calling the only ones, because there's only 3/4 of us. But just the way it goes.
Well, I guess the band name actually does suit that situation, because it is the only ones that are left in a sense, isn't it?
Yeah, the only ones that are left. I don't know who will be the only one.
I mean, it's amazing you're actually in a position where you can play another gig. I mean, you've led sort of quite a vagabond life.
I don't think we would have foreseen it at the time we were doing it, rehearsing through 76, gigging in 77. I certainly don't think we would have foreseen playing at this age, 50 years ahead.
I mean, does that time bring something different to the songs, when you revisit them?
Say again?
When you revisit the songs after all this time?
I mean, it's harder singing songs that you wrote 45 years ago. Obviously, I enjoy singing songs that I wrote yesterday and the day before. Remembering the words is quite a challenge for my old brain, but I've managed to write so far. It's sort of, when it's been quite a long time since playing those songs, like 11 years here. I mean, we did 2 shows in Tokyo in 2014, and we did 4 songs when I played at the Summerstown Festival in 2019. But the majority of them have been some of the ones we're doing in the set now. We haven't played since the 70s. So that makes it a bit more fun. We haven't had time to get sort of bored with them.
I mean, do the songs change meaning to you to sing lyrically and musically?
Yeah, I can't really. I was a different person that wrote those songs. I can't really remember what they're about. I mean, the words. I like the words, so they sound good. But I can't really remember my motivation back then. My only motivation was just having fun and not taking anything seriously. I tend to take music a bit more seriously now because I actually appreciate it. It's a great therapy for me. gives me a purpose and something to occupy my time with. So it means a lot more to me now.
Yeah, I mean, interestingly, music, in a sense, almost destroyed your life, but it's also saved your life, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't blame music for destroying my life. It was me. It was my decisions. I thought I found something that was more fun than music, and it took me 35 years to realise that it wasn't fun at all. It was just a very boring state of mind. And when I finally managed to wake up again, I was lucky enough to have music there, because I thought, you spend a lot of time sitting in a room staring at the walls, and you've got to find something benign addiction to occupy that time. And for me, music's the best addiction.
When you look back at that younger person who wrote those songs, and you say it's a different person, how different?
45 years differently. Hopefully I've learned some things. I'm still childish in my approach to many things, but I take life more seriously now. I appreciate each day, and luckily I've got my partner, Zena, who I've been with for 54 years, and we can laugh at all the mistakes we made along the way.
And for you, John, is it the same? I mean, obviously you're not singing the lyrics, but playing the songs.
When we put the band together, when we first started working, we had about a year with just kind of playing almost every day, getting the songs together. So we arrived at pretty good arrangements without ever speaking to each other about what it needed. We just played until kind of everyone felt it felt right. So what I find is the arrangements were so well worked up that year, 76, and then played hard. Picking the arrangements up, and they stand well. You can play them straight off today, and the arrangements just sound as well as they did first time we did them. So musically, there's not a great, there's very little shift involved. You don't have to think yourself back into the part or into the feel, because they were kind of right first time,
I mean, but for you, when you list those songs, you play those songs, is it like a portal into a different time?
Is it like
a portal looking through back to a very different time?
No, not for me, because...
Or do you just go straight back into that place?
Those particular songs I can come back to almost straight away. There's people I played with before we did The Only Ones and possibly after, that the music would probably sound really dated to me. But I think just because of the way we worked up these things, it's very easy to get back into the centre of the music.
I think with John, it's in his DNA, because for these 3 gigs we had 4 rehearsals with John, because he lives in Dublin, so it's like a big thing to come over to London and rehearse. And during those 4 rehearsals, I think John's eyes were open probably about a couple of hours each day. The rest of the time it was like, is John awake? So yeah, I think it's just something that comes naturally to John.
I mean, when you initially met and worked together, it was more of a musical project, wasn't it? You do a lot of collaborations. You've done a lot of collaborations over the years, and you both have. Was it like a collaboration that became a band, or was it to form a band?
It's definitely to form a band. I mean, because like when I met John in '75, he said like, this is something worth taking seriously. We ought to form a band, and so it took us like a year to actually find Kelly and then Alan. Collaborations. I mean, I've got collaborations on the new album that's coming out next year, but it's only adding to something. I mean, collaborations, I don't know, it's hard to put yourself 100% into something if it's only a collaboration. I mean, the people that have collaborated with me on the album that I've just recorded, do what I want them to do. Sometimes they come up with things that take the song in a different direction, but yeah.
So in a situation when you two work together, it's much more of a 50-50 type of thing, is it? Or it's different for the collaborations, basically?
When we first met, it was like 50-50 because we hadn't found Kelly and Alan. You know, obviously, like became 25. Yeah.
So it was a very different way of working than you would normally work yourself. Then you were definitely working within the context of being in a band.
Yeah, because I'd write the songs, and the greatest thing about writing a song is if you've got a band that you can take the song immediately into and just start playing. And they play perfect things straight away.
Putting a band together as we did then is you need a lot of luck. I mean, you can pick the right musicians, you can pick good musicians. Doesn't at all guarantee that it'll happen. You need the luck, that the bonds as well. And we were very lucky. I mean, Alan and Kelly were a superb rhythm section. We played, of that year that we worked it up, we played for about 8 months and we were halfway there. And then when Alan appeared, it took about less than a week. We got studio recording 7 days after Alan joined, and just bang, suddenly everything is right. And that still is. It works as easily today as it worked in August 77.
So is it just one of those things, like a lot of groups?
76, I think it was.
Yeah, it's a long time ago. It's just one of those things you just know when you work together. You think this is different. This is something that's really
you
special.
can feel it. You can certainly feel it when you're playing with the right people. There's an extra. Because with session people you play with are fucking good players. They're great players, and you can knock up a passable single in 3 hours, say. But and when you're doing it, you don't do it with thinking this. We're creating something that will stand forever, or this will be listened to in 100 years or whatever. But from this distance now, you begin to see that there probably will be people listening to it in another 50 years. The stuff sounds the best of it sounds as contemporary as it ever did, I think.
I mean, for you as a guitar player, obviously technically very good guitar player, but also very melodic. And do you think the melodic nature of guitar parts, guitar solos, is really important for you as a personal player, or important in the context, the only ones?
I thought the two qualities you need is attack and melody. And there's a million guitarists with a lot of attack, just making horrible noises or playing a million notes. And I find that unlistenable. And the other element is melody, and melody is probably the more important, but if you want to just play purely melodically, you could probably be a classical guitarist. It's that element of attack is what makes it rock and roll. So if you get those two in balance, it should sound alright.
Yeah, I agree with John, although I do like horrible noises, but I agree with him about millions of notes. I hate people that play like that.
So you think like a minimalism is important? Like a minimal?
Well, there's a term called shredding, which, people just show off that they can play tons of notes a minute. I think that's pointless, it's just like working out in the gym, really. It's nothing to do with music at all.
It's not, I don't think it's consciously minimalism, with a capital M, adopting as a kind of, an art school concept. It's just musically, you get bored to death of people who won't shut up. You get so many guitarists, as soon as they find they've got a bit of technique, they're like those people at parties that will talk for 3 hours without a break. Having heard more of that as you go through, you end up just wanting to play less. So, and the trick is to say more with less. And if you can do that, then it is minimal, but probably not minimalism.
I mean, often with your solos and the would they come straight to you, or do you work at them? Did you have to work at them?
You work them up. That's a little bit process, a little bit like sculpting. The Planet's intro. I knew it was going to start on the lowest note and end on the highest one. I knew that clearly, and it would work over. I think it's 32 bars. Did you say it is? Yeah. I knew a couple of points, a couple of key steps in that climb, but I didn't have them all placed out. We went in to do it. I thought I was just getting a sound on the guitar. I put one down, put a rough one, thinking they were placing the microphones and getting it right and so on. And it went very nicely, but I went into the studio, control room, and said, "Okay, are you ready to start? Should we take one?" And everyone was jumping around saying, "No, don't change the thing. That's it. We'll use it." So the one you hear on the record was supposed to be just a test run.
So to this day, you think I'll go back and finish that off.
Yeah, I played it one pretty much as it is on record. It's
Well, it's one of the perfect guitar solos.
He still likes improvising. Like, he won't play it as it is on record. Like, back in the day, he played it different because that's what made it fun. Improvising. We used to all improvise on stage because we didn't think we should reproduce the record, because if people wanted to hear the record, they could listen to the record. They wanted something different live. I think now, when it becomes like an iconic solo, I think that's one solo that John should actually play, because people learn how to do it online. Like, when half the audience could play it, and John mucks around and plays something different.
But even now, I mean, you can play the basic melodies, because as you say, they are melodic. You can play those basic phrases so that everyone would recognise them. But there's still just little niches in the phrasing, little nuances. You can change it up. Doing Whole of the Law last night, at the end, just found a particularly nice way of playing it that I'd never done before. The trick is really to take yourself out of the equation. Just stand back and let it happen.
Just completely
if you do that right, it happens great.
Yeah, but you're risking it. Not being.
Of course you are.
Yeah, but I know that. We hear a Rebellion festival. People want to hear what we sounded like in the 70s, and that is what I mean. I think improvising other shit is okay, but for Planet, I think it's become, like people think of you as being. What's that?
Don't split up. You've got the gig to do. But public, what do you want? I believe that he should have the freedom to improvise. What do you think?
Yeah.
Or do you agree with Peter? It should be the classic form. I think classic actually winning. I think the people voted. So actually, speaking of Rebellion, and it's interesting, we're at a punk festival, and the only ones. It's kind of interesting how you fitted in, even though you started before, and you didn't ostensibly sound what people have as a cliche punk sound. But you felt exactly right for that time for a lot of people my age. Why?
I mean, I never wanted to fit in with any trend or fashion that was going on. That's why I called the band The Only Ones. I think we identified with the attitude, because I was always a rebellious person. I got expelled from more than one school, and I met Malcolm and Vivienne when they were running Let It Rock. So I saw the whole process but Malcolm is a really funny guy, and he was like, I appreciated what he was doing and turning the music scene upside down. So attitude, I identified with the punk scene, but I always wanted to do music that questioned people's attitudes to things rather than giving them what they expected. So I tried to do music that didn't fit in. I've always, I think, I don't like making people too comfortable, because then it just becomes background music that people can talk over. I think I prefer to do music that people either love or hate, and I think at the time we managed to do that, because some punks loved us, some punks thought we weren't part of the scene, but I mean, we never really wanted to be part of the scene, but we appreciated that the scene was an amazing time to be a musician, because it opened every fucking door, and it gave us the chance to have a platform to play all the punk clubs up and down the country. It was the best time in music as far as I'm concerned.
And for you, John, when you got roots back in the 60s, and you've written beautifully about people like Jimi Hendrix and things, what was your take on the punk thing? Did you see, in a sense, it was a return to that thing, the Stones and Hendrix and people making raw, exciting music and putting it out as pop singles?
Yeah, what I liked of punk when it was its best, it was really the same attack in rock and roll that had been, was there in the mid-60s and had been lost completely. As the first part of the 70s drifted on, there weren't many bands playing with much interest and much attack. The few bands of that area who had it had been playing for so long that you were almost too used to it. It couldn't have many surprises. So the thing that the point where I realised that something good and new was happening was soon after the Heartbreakers came over from the stage. They played the Roxy twice. I think this is early in '76, is it, Peter? Can you remember? When were the 90 days of the Roxy?
They played the Roxy after we played it, I think February. I saw them there.
77.
Yeah, 77.
Yeah, okay, the Heartbreakers come over. There was a night at the Roxy.
They came over in 76, but if you're talking about the Roxy specifically, I think that was 77.
It was the Heartbreakers at the Roxy. Almost every musician I know who was at that remembers that night. Because they were just great. I mean, they played stuff that we haven't really heard in England for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. But there's kind of simplicity in attack. They're just like a freight train. So, certainly the Pistols and the Clash were all there and were knocked out by Jerry or by Johnny. And they lost it quickly because they, within a few months they all hated each other. But in those early months when the Heartbreakers first came to England, they were sensational. Pretty much a definition of everything that punk, I think that punk stands for.
I mean, Johnny was really surprised because I've heard a phone call he was making to a friend in New York. He said they think we're professional over here because compared to everyone else that only just started playing, the Heartbreakers were really professional. Like, in New York they weren't, but I obviously, because I knew Malcolm and Vivienne, I saw the Pistols in the end of '75. Chelsea Art College and the Nashville and stuff, and I was inspired by them because they couldn't play very well, but they didn't give a fuck. At Chelsea Art College, everybody hated them. It was like just open mouthed, and they couldn't care less. And I thought that's a great attitude. And I sort of sensed it was the beginning of something. So, like John says, when the Heartbreakers came over, they were part of the scene. Now, Johnny always used to say to me, "Why don't you get your hair cut and spiked and join?" Because he thought that we were losing an audience by not joining in with the fashion part of it. But the Heartbreakers were exciting because they could generate a lot of attack, like John says.
We do see them as fellow travellers in a sense. I mean, you don't sound the same as them, but there's a vibe in there.
Well, Johnny Thunders was like the same age as me, born in '52. Like lots of the punks were like 3 years younger, and they seemed like kids to us. Like we were taking grown-up drugs, they were taking kids' drugs, amphetamine and stuff like that. And so he was like disparaging about them in a way, but he enjoyed being part of the scene. Me and Johnny had lots of similar tastes in fashion and stuff.
I think we also recognise, I mean, they were a great band, but really interested in simplicity. Cut things short, keep the tempos up, no gaps between songs. They just came through like a freight train especially when they were new. And certainly them and us, I think, recognised a common musicality up to a point, but just an economy, really, hard and economic.
Well, they had a good drummer. Like
great drummer.
When people are starting to learn their instruments, it's hard. You can play like 3 chords pretty easy. It's hard to be a really solid drummer in a short space of time. So the Heartbreakers had that, and the Clash, when they got Topper, had that as well. I mean, I saw the Clash January the 1st, '77, at the Roxy. And I wasn't that impressed. Next time I saw them, the Palladium, I think it was in New York, completely different band, powerful.
So what was it like working with Johnny Thunders? I mean, you worked with them a lot, didn't you?
Yeah, on So Alone. We started gigging first of all, and then he got approached by Dave Hill real records. And David asked me and said, like, will you be involved in it if I give him a record deal? Because he didn't trust Johnny to get it together, because I was much more together than him at that time. And so we started. I did most of the original songs, like I think 5 or 6 songs off So Alone. But then I had to, I had to do something with the Only Ones anyway. So it was fun working with him. Like the original take of the title track So Alone, which didn't come out on the original album, it came out on a re-release. I've got a copy of it where you can hear Johnny's guitar at the end just cutting out, and then you can hear Kelly saying, because like he just fallen over into Kelly's drums, and you can hear Kelly saying, "You're right, you're right," which brings back memories of the way Johnny could be. Because unfortunately he let things affect his performance sometimes too much. Like he could, but he was a very charismatic person, and lots of people went to see if he could finish gigs standing up or not. I find that quite a sad epitaph, but because he's become like a cartoon anti-hero, to some people, and he was much more than that. He was someone who underachieved because the amount of charisma he had and the way he played guitar. He should have done much better recordings.
Which is what's great about your story, isn't it? Your story of your life is the opposite, isn't it? You obviously went down.
As soon as I felt that I was not in a position to do my best, I just retired and told myself, right, I'm going to get clean before I do more music. And I had a short hiatus in the 90s, a hiatus from my professional occupation of being a professional junkie, but really I just wasted 35 years of waiting to get clean. So it's two different approaches. Johnny just kept on playing and had highs and lows. Unfortunately died much too early, but that was the life he lived. Because when I got clean for a year or so in the early 90s, I was really pissed off that Johnny had just died as I was getting clean, because I regretted not collaborating with him more, because he was the one person that was like, it was, I didn't get close to many male people. My preoccupations were with getting friendly with females, but Johnny was someone I felt really close to. And when I finally, because like throughout the 80s he'd come round and try and get me out of the house, saying it's such a waste, and he got me out of the house a couple of times, but I turned up to the studio once just as they were leaving, like 2 in the morning or whatever. I think that was Copycats, wasn't it? I think,
by Copycats, this is 83, 84, something like that.
Okay.
John really just wanted to be Dion. He decided he wasn't terribly interested in playing guitar. He wanted to be Dion DiMucci, and he did it quite well. Good for him.
So we've only got a couple of minutes left now. So we talked about this before, but this is just a few gigs. But I think a few people in here would like to hear if you could actually do a fourth Only Ones album. Is a possibility this would be more at some point than just going through the old songs, which is great, and everyone's happy with that. But is there a creative thing, and you sort of look at each other thinking we could do some more stuff?
I mean, I haven't even thought of that. I mean, like just rehearsing and getting the set together for these 3 gigs is like a major achievement, because the last proper gig I did was February the 29th, 2020, just before lockdown. That was in Stockholm, which is like 3.5 years ago. So I hadn't done a proper gig for 3.5 years. In that time I caught COVID. November 2021. Spent 13 days in hospital. Fell off a chair the first day, broke my hip. Spent like 9 months learning how to walk again. The only thing I've done is like half out here where I saw you at Jordan's memorial.
Which was brilliant.
I mean that was one occasion that would get me out of the house without proper rehearsals, because Jordan was such a sweet girl. But that was half an hour, and that was like no pressure really. So I mean, it was more like turning up to say thank you for being alive. So this is the first gigs I've done for ages, and it's like putting my toes in the water, seeing if I can survive 3 gigs in a row, because like I can't help mixing with people, and if I catch a cold I can't sing for two weeks, so it's like a bit of a lottery. Because when I caught COVID, that was the first gig I'd been to. Went to a gig, went to the after party, and then the after party. Had 1 beer, got really friendly, close to people, and 4 days later I was in hospital. So yeah, I mean, something is playing gigs is really fun. It's fun talking to people afterwards, but it is sort of gambling with your life a little bit.
I know, I was just being greedy, really.
I mean, like, because making that's a whole other commitment that is an organic process over years. I mean, we're still strangers. We haven't played together for ages. Sorry, I interrupted you. You asked, John.
Well, I was just because you're working on your own album at the moment, and you said you're working on new songs.
Yeah, I've got a new double album that will come out either April or September next year. Halfway through mixing it. Yeah.
And then, John, what are you working on?
Whatever comes up, really. I mean, one of the things I wanted to talk about briefly was that I've been to a few, purely by chance, 2 or 3 different university sort of seminars where punk was the theme. Went to a thing at St Martin's with Keith Vivienne, one in Ireland, one somewhere up in the north of England. I do think it's extraordinary, the afterlife of punk, and how it's become an academic discipline in itself, I mean, who would have foreseen that? And it's the perfect academic discipline, because it can mean almost anything, whether people are the fashion side of it, or the theoretical side, or the music. I never foresaw that, so like...
it's crazy, isn't it?
That's a good point, John. That is, I'm in awe of your vision. That is well, because we wouldn't have thought that. I mean, it was just like kids having fun in the 70s, but it was an important movement. I mean, you see like young Japanese punks out in the street now. Like you said, who would have thought that?
But other movements, I mean, jazz was important, but it's a niche market. Punk has had an extraordinary blossoming into what theoretical punk and academic punk. Because why, don't you? You've probably been at half those conferences yourself, so.
But try not to get too academic about it. It always spoils it, I think.
It's.
And punk's taken on differently. I mean, what started off as English punk, I mean, it's become like hardcore American punk. People use it as an attitude. People nowadays, there's lots of people that identify as being punk groups that wouldn't, be heavy metal or be. Do you know what I mean? It's just an attitude of like being against the establishment. And I think that's why it's lasted, because it's probably been the most anti-establishment movement, and it's people like identifying with that.
It's a very good place to end. Ladies and gentlemen.